Hello, welcome to KAJOS Consultants. I'm Joshua. Today we're going to look at Copying Strategy Index, also known as the CSI. Copying Strategy Index is an indicator of food security, normally used in assessing how different households adopt harmful coping strategies when they do not have enough food or when they do not have enough money to buy food. So by the end of this session, he'll be in a position to understand how the CSI measurables and their weighted scores. Secondly, understand how to assign the CSI scores and their threshold. And finally, we'll also be able to distinguish the three categories of coping strategy index. In a study that was conducted after a certain intervention in an area, the researcher wanted to know how the different households are adapting to the current situation amid a food crisis in their area. And in that line, there's normally a number of questions or measurables that are normally subjected to the interviewees or the respondents in a bid to obtain relevant information about food security. So in this case, they're going to check out some of the CSI weights and some of the measurables that we normally try to investigate under food security, and they are specifically under the Coping Strategy Index as an indicator of food security. Coping Strategy Indicator, Coping Strategy Index is normally subdivided into four categories. One, we have the dietary change. Second, you have increased short-term household food availability. Third, you have decreased number of people. And fourth, you have the rationing strategies. So under dietary change, we normally sought also to get the response to some of the question on relying on less preferred and less expensive foods. And when you go to the field, how you will ask this question, there is maybe in the previous 7 days, how many times or how many days has you also love to rely on less preferred and less expensive foods? And this is normally done on a 7-day recall period. So from that, then you can get the answer and multiply it with the severity weight, which I will also be showing you very shortly. And that increased short-term household food availability. You have a question on borrow food or rely on help from friends or relatives. Then this also, we normally have to assess that. Under same category, also seek to ask, in the previous 7 days, how many days has the household have to purchase food on credit? Then they will tell either 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, or 6 days. Another one is whether they have gathered wild food or hunt or harvest mature crops, and for how many days within the 7-day recall period. Then the final one under that category is consume seed stock held for next season. Then this will also be a bit to know the number of days. Then you have another one on decreased number of people, whether they send children to eat with neighbors, so that now maybe the adults or the food, maybe at that time the available food can only feed adults, also be in a position to understand that. And then for how many days did they do that on a 7-day recall period. Another one under that is whether they send household members to bed because there was completely nothing for them to consume. Then under such circumstances, maybe members of the family may be forced to do that, especially amid economic crisis. The final category under Coping Strategy Index is rationing strategies. And here we sought also to get some of the feedback from the household that they limited portion size at mealtime. And next, whether they restricted consumption by adults in order for small children to eat. The other one is feed working members of the household at the expense of non-working members. Next is reduce number of meals eaten in a day. And finally, whether they escape entire day without eating. So after getting all the frequencies under this, alongside the severity weights or scores that are assigned under each measurable, we normally get the total score to assign that household to a particular coping strategy index threshold, which is also categorized under 3 as low, medium, and high. The severity weights that we are going to use, or the weighted scores that we are going to use for this particular exercise, the one that have been designed by the WFP and the FAO, that is the World Food Program, and the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. So those are some of the guidings that we are going to use for this. Some of the measurables that we have are here alongside. We have these ones alongside some of the values that have been assigned under each, and we are going to just look at them. So my first question will ask, in the previous 7 days, how many days have you household have to rely on less preferred and less expensive foods? Then they can tell you 3 days. How many days in the past 7 days have the household have to borrow food or rely on help from friends or relatives? Then that one they can tell you 5. This one can say 2 days, 3 days. Maybe send children, consume seed stock help for next season, maybe 2 or 3. Send children to eat with neighbors, maybe once. Send household members to beg, maybe they didn't do that, maybe 0. Limit portion size at mealtime. You can say 2, restrict consumption by adults, maybe did that once. Feed working members of the hall at the expense of non-working members, maybe twice, and then maybe this one can be 0. Reduce the number of meals eaten in a day, maybe they had all the 3 meals or the 5 meals, then skip an entire day without eating, we can say also 0. The severity weights, as I stated earlier, these ones are defined by the World Food Program and the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. So under number 1, where they rely on preferred and less expensive food, the severity weight assigned under this is normally 1. Then borrow food or rely on food from friends is assigned to. Purchase food on credit, that is assigned 3. 2. Gather wild food or ant harvest from mature crop 4, then all the way to skip entire day without eating, and it's assigned 4. Cause in a scenario whereby a situation whereby the family then reached at this point, the situation is really very worse, that is assigned a high value 4. To get the weighted score, to get the frequency, which is the number of days the household adopted or used that coping strategy, then multiply by the severity weight. So by doing that, simply click on is equal sign or press on is equal sign on the computer's keyboard, is equal sign. Then we type product, because these are multiplication we're going to do. Then double click. Then we take on that first one. Then we can drag it up to that point. Then we click on enter key. You'll get the value. So to get all the other values, you can either drag them up to that point, or the other way, we can simply place our cursor at the end of this point, then double click and get all the values under that particular location or particular section. So when we now want to get the totals, so that we can now know where does this family or household fall, then we simply get the sum of all these. So it is click on is equal sign, then sum, double click on sum. Then we take the first value and drag all the way up to the last value, then press on enter, get 48. So the WFP and FAO have also come up with the CSI thresholds and or categories where they have assigned when an household or a household lies between 0 to 50, then that one we're going to say it is the CSI or Copying Strategy Index for that household is low. When it is 51 to 100, you say it is medium. Then any value above 100 or 100 and above is assigned as high. high. So the high, then the copying strategy index is very high, then it means the food security in that household is really declining. When it is low, then the food security is improving. So we're going to now check on the data that have been gathered with a certain number of more than 300 households were subjected to this particular study. So we have whether they rely on less preferred and less expensive food all the way to reduce the portion of meals for all household members, then you are going to take this. So our first activity here, we're going to assign the CSI score. So we're going to have a copying strategy index as scores. Then the next one, we're going to have the CSI thresholds. So on our first one, he said we're only going to use two Excel formula, that is the product and sum. So we are going to have is equal sign. We are going to add under each column. We are going to multiply each measurable by the severity score and add with the subsequent measurable for each column. So our first column here, just before you do that, you have to insert a table so that all our values will be automatically filled once you have done the first one. So we add, so we have all those values. We're going to insert a table. For that, simply click on insert then table, then click on OK. And all our values have now been inserted under this table. So we are going to work with the first value, which is rely on less preferred or less expensive food. And we are going to be checking that against the severity or the weighted score as defined by the WFP and the FAO. So the first one I'm going to have is equal sign, then sum, double click on sum. Then our first value is rely on less preferred and less expensive food. And that one I'm going to check what are the CSI weights now indicate. Rely on less preferred, less expensive. It is you have a value of 1 there. So we're going to multiply that by 1. So that is on 1. Just have that. Then we multiply it by 1. So rely on less preferred and less expensive food, multiply it by 1. Then comma, we go to the next one. We have to indicate a comma after each function. So we multiply that, then we add it. We add that with the second one. That one, restrict consumption by adults. So restrict consumption by adults, we're going to multiply that by restrict consumption by adults in order for small children to eat. Then we also check on the weight. Restrict consumption by adults in order for small children to eat. This one was a severity weight of 2. So we're going to multiply it by, so that one, restrict consumption. Just delete this one. Restrict consumption by adults. Consumption by adults in order for small children to eat. Multiply that by 2, comma. The next one is collected wild plants. Collected wild plants was assigned a value of wild plants assigned a value of 4. So wild plants are going to wild plants are 4. Collected wild plants was assigned 4, comma. The next one is asked for and received food. So asked for and received food from friends. Going to check on that. Go for rely on food from friends or relative that was assigned a value of 2. So I'm going to multiply this by friends and relative by 2, comma. Go to the next one. I sent women and all children. So going to this, ask for this one, the weights. Help friend, purchase, send children, eat with neighbors. That was severity weight of 2. Going to multiply that. So send children and all children and other members to work for food. Send women and all children and other members. Yeah, well, then we're going to multiply that too. Then next one is eaten, stored food. Stored food, that one maybe you can do it alongside food, stored food, seed stock for the next season. That was 3. Multiply that by 3. Then the next one is then comma. Next one is purchase. Purchase low quality food in the market. Purchase low quality food in the market, then can, so that one will still on less preferred, less expensive food, borrow food or rely on help, conceive it by other working members, less preferred, that will still be 1. I'm going to multiply that by 1. Multiply by 1, then comma. The next one is this one is bought and consumed. Fewer food. Bought and consumed. I'm going to check on that. Multiply. So bought and consumed, fewer types of items or less expensive. That one is still 1. Then we have next one is reduced. Let's reduce the number of daily. We're going to multiply that by the number of daily meals. That is check on the CSI. Do the number of meals eaten a day is 2. And give the number of daily meals. The number of daily meals, that one I'm going to multiply by 2. So the number of daily meals multiply by 2. Then comma. Then purchase food on credit. Check the CSI for that. Purchase food on credit is assigned to. Multiply that by 2. And finally, do the portion. So that is under Rationing. So limit portion size at meal time, that is assigned 1. So I'm going to multiply that by 1. The portion of meal for household meal, that is 1. Then we click on enter, and all our values have been auto-filled here. So after getting this, then what we are going to do next is now to get the CSI threshold for each of these categories and know which one fall in which category. And as I indicated earlier, you have different scores here. Here we have 0 to 100 as 0 to 50 as low, 51 to 100 as medium, and more than 100 as high. So we are going to check on this and write all these values here on a separate worksheet. We are going to have 0 to 100, 0 to 50, sorry, then 51 to 100, then going to have more than 100. So this is going to be, this is low, this is low, this is medium, and this is high or severe. So we're going to now to assign a different place. Let me just copy this section and bring it here. So for this, we are going to assign the lower class limit. So 0 is going to be the one, then lower class limit for that is 51. Then for this one is going to be 100. So these are the values we're going to use to assign using the VLOOKUP function. So for this, you're going now to check on the CSI data and assign this by low, medium, high, and that is under high. So you're going to check using the VLOOKUP. We're simply going to enter the CSI thresholds. We are now going to assign. So we have is equal sign. Then type on VLOOKUP. Double click on VLOOKUP. Then click on the first value under the CSI score. Then after you have done that, click or press on comma on the keyboard. Then come back to where we have the value that you want to be returned. So we have these values. Where we have 0 is low, 51 medium, 1 is 100. We want these values to be returned. Once you have selected these values that we need to be returned, we're going to click on your keyboard. There are function keys, and you have a key written F4. So click on F4 to return this value. Then now which value do you want them to return? We're going to look for the CSI scores that are either 0, 51, or 100, then return the second column. So we want them to return the second column of this for this Excel sheet. I'm going to press on comma first, then press on 2, because we want them to return this second column of these values. Then how many times? We want is only 1, so comma 1. So once you have done that, we click on enter, and all our values are going to be given here. So you can see, just to maybe to repeat that, we just what we need to do is click on is equal sign, VLOOKUP, double click on VLOOKUP, then press on comma, and VLOOKUP, then press on the first value under the CSI score, click on the first one under the CSI score, then comma, then come to where you have your values, where you have assigned your values. Here we said 0 to 50 is low, 51 to 100 is medium, then less than, then more than 100 is high. So we're going to have a separate section where we have the lower class limits and the CSI threshold that we want to be returned. So you'll have the CSI, the lower class limit for low is 0, for medium is 51, and then for high is 100. So having these values here, we're going to select all of them that way. Then press on F4 because we want all those categories to be returned. We want the first one and the second one, the CSI score and the threshold returned. Then we press on F4. After pressing on F4, let us have a comma. Then we want this value to read on the first, but then return on the second column. Then we have to retype here too. Then again another comma, then press on 1. So once you have done that, simply click on enter, and all these values will be here as you see here, as we have them for this particular data set. So here we can again come and check how many lows, how many medians do we have, and then how many are high. So we can just copy that, then we can bring them here. So once we do that, we want to see how many high and low and medium do we have. So we have the equal sign. So we want them to count, and these are to count if these are low or these are medium. So we want to count if medium, low, and that. Let me just select all of them up to where we are, up to there. Then we'll have our comma. So we want them to return whether it is a low or a medium. So we click on enter. Then we do that the same way. So we just check. So this one up to there. So for this particular data, we find that we did not have high copying strategy index. The lows were more than the highs, were more than the mediums, or the media, and there was no high copying strategy index, meaning for this particular exercise, you had a medium and a low copying strategy, meaning that the food security was a bit of improving. And this normally happens when there's an emergency food assistance, maybe in that area, that might have alleviated these people from the impoverished situation that they were experiencing at that time. And then the food security for this particular location was improving. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and kindly hit on the subscription tab below to subscribe on this button for more of these tutorials.